each engineering team seems to these days have a different approach how they do stuff. Some do lots of upfront work. Some just get on with it. Some sprint for 1 week, 2 weeks. Some do continuous deployment, and there's lots and lots of different things, right? Surely by now we should have worked out what the right one is, and everybody should just do that, shouldn't they? Isn't that how it should happen? So Dave, let's go for you, because you've been on this journey with OVO a bit, right?
Yeah, I mean, and as I said, I had very different experiences at Hotels.com and OVO. So Hotels.com, when I joined, we were a single team, effectively monolith. So everybody was having to work the same way because we were all working in the same in the same code base. And we scaled over time. So we scaled up to 80 plus teams and so on. And one of my gigs was to build out the platform. And so by doing that, we had a lot of consistency in how we did things. There were ways that the teams varied, but there was a lot of consistency. I joined OVO. OVO, founder-led, very entrepreneurial founder. Effectively had a kind of view of the world, which is you want good stuff to happen, you put a team around it, you let them get on with it, and you don't tell them how to do it. And so we had lots and lots of different teams doing things in different ways. And I turned out thinking, well, maybe I've got it all wrong, right? Like maybe this is the way to do things, And so, and because it's hard standardizing stuff and finding the right answers and so on. But really, I found kind of no. There are lots of reasons why. You really do want to think about where where the benefits of standardization and why you want to standardize. Simple things around, you want to be, you may have a reliable system, but if you want to be able to demonstrate that, you've got to have some way of kind of, having a joined up view of that that you can see and people can see. So if you want to be able to demonstrate that to yourself or to others. So OVO is on that journey where, we're on a journey where we're standardizing, but we're looking at why we do it, what the benefit of doing it is, and doing it piece by piece. Because obviously we can't stop the world and say, right, everyone's going to stop what they're doing and start a new way, but we're inching our way there. And my kind of learning was obviously autonomy is super powerful and super important, but you want to do it in an aligned way. You want to do it where everyone's pulling together towards the same goal.
Got it. I heard a little bit of like horses for courses there, right? A little bit of like different companies, different sizes, different stages. Rennie, blank sheet of paper, right? Yeah. I mean, that's an opportunity, isn't it? Isn't that exciting? Isn't that the way to go? Every team can design how they want to do it themselves?
No.
Okay. That wasn't a setup at all.
No. Gosh. So I call myself accidental a lot of things, and I kind of feel like agile and autonomy are like democracy. It's the worst of a bad bunch, but it's still the best of that bunch. You know what I mean? So it's like it's terrible, but it's the only one that works. So my view is this. The balance has to be struck between how many people have seen the Lego movie? Right? Lego movie. So there's this great speech by Batman where he meets Rothschild, and he goes, if we're going to be together, you have to recognize that I get to do whatever I want and hang out with random people whenever I want to. And sometimes I feel like autonomy in squads is like that. Like I'm just going to do my own thing and you just have to deal with it. And it's like, no. So where I find peace with it is to be very clear on what the standards are. How are things going to be measured? Here is a way we know achieves those standards. If you can demonstrate you have another way to achieve those standards that improves on that, then by all means, please use that and then teach other people and help us to improve what we have. But I fancy a science experiment because I'm a bit bored and I don't want to follow your instructions is not okay, because most organizations are working in commercial environments. As much as we don't like deadlines, they're actually real and they exist. And the risk around, full autonomous experimentation is not often worth the return. So I err on the side of be really, really clear about what your standards are. Be really, really clear on that's not optional. You have to actually hit them. And then equally be open to the idea that you bring new people to your organization because they may have done something different and better. By all means, let's see it, let's do it, but you need to have confidence it's going to work.
Okay. We're going to come back to that a little bit when we get to a question about how you sort of retain some of the staff around a tech stack, because then letting people do what they want comes into play. I couldn't help thinking like you're the Alfred of the Batman world. That was sort of how you were coming across there, sort of thing, right? Just great idea. We love Batman's outcomes, but we need a little bit of logic and sense behind it, right? That's what I got anyway. Now you talked about commercial, and there's deadlines and stuff like that. I'm guessing, Neil, you had a pretty tough deadline, and also commercial wasn't necessarily your constraint, but surely there was some kind of regulatory standards that you had to meet, which means that there was a heavy rule book, wasn't there?
Yeah, absolutely. And I thought we were going to have a fight, but actually I agree with an awful lot of what you said. I know. We need to. Maybe we can do it later.
I want my sneakers.
Yeah, exactly. Absolutely. I think, the COVID app, there were privacy bodies, the ICO, there was policy, government, but most of all the medical regulations. This was it had the kite mark on it. It had to meet those compliance standards. That enforces a process on you that you simply legally cannot bend. But I think you also having to hit an incredibly tight deadline, and so therefore, if every decision needs to go to some difficult architecture board or regulatory panel for sign-off, you're not going to get anything delivered. So, actually, I think there's a balance to be had between you put the guardrails in that absolutely matter. You set up that sort of license to operate. You get that team. If you can stay within those guardrails, if you can meet the delivery metrics we're expecting of you, we're going to give you some freedom to be able to go faster and prove yourself. And I think, as you said, the metrics, we tracked the metrics. We made sure that people were able to go fast. But yeah, within that framework that we defined, because you can't get away with it. You're gonna get hold of.
Sure, and it certainly sounds like it delivered the benefits that you needed at the time, which I guess is where you're coming from, Rennie, is focus on what the mission is. The fluff can wait a little bit, for other times. Not that I'm pointing at you for fluff, Bruno, but
I can give you some.
But Funding Circle must come across a lot of businesses who are doing lots and lots of different things, some of them in a very early stage where maybe innovation, experimentation and that kind of stuff is a little bit more relevant. So are you siding with these guys over here, or are you off the rails doing what you like?
I wouldn't say I'm off the rails. I think there is a level of perspective that we need to take as leaders across everything. There is no one size fits all. And that for me is really important. When you look to the stages of a business and you go from incubation to product or solution market fit, product market fit, channels optimization, growth, all the way to enterprise, every single one of them will have different challenges. When you are in product market fit, you need to iterate as fast as you can possibly can. Why?